Talmadge, you were playing some old PC video games this weekend, and that got me thinking a lot about the kind of return of traditional old school PC games. You were playing. What were you playing this weekend? You were playing some of Ultima 4.
Am I that old? No, I was playing.
Ultima.
I was playing Ultima Underworld.
Underworld, okay.
Which I got a hankering because Ultima Ascendant is being worked on right now by Other Side Entertainment. Some of the guys who were from Looking Glass, some of the guys who worked on the original Ultima Underworld back in the day, so the Stygian Abyss. So I got a hankering after chatting with some people on Twitter this weekend to go to GOG and replay through it, because I haven't played through Ultima Underworld in probably a good 7-8 years now. I played through it probably 3 or 4 times in my life. It came out in like 92, 93, I think, around that timeline. But yeah, love that game. That game for me was the first time I felt completely immersed in a video game, because I don't know, has anybody else here played Ultima Underworld or know of Ultima Underworld at least?
I have not.
I haven't played it, no.
I've actually never played an Ultima game. That's
at all.
Wow.
Period. Wow, Dan, you got a big history then. We don't have this much time. Ultima Underworld was basically a 3D representation of a dungeon. One of the first 3D games ever, before even Wolfenstein, where you could actually look up and down. Now it used sprites as well within the 3D representation, but it was just incredible because as simple as the graphics were, I mean, it really did give you that sense of, wow, this is where video games are going, and this is what virtual reality is like, and man, I can really walk around in these worlds, and it's not just a flat screen that I'm looking at. So I'm playing through that again. Down to level 2. There's, I think, 8 different levels in the Stygian Abyss when you get thrown in, and you have to figure it out. And there's all these relationships between different factions there, between the gray goblins and the green goblins. You have the humans who live there who are interacting with these different factions too. There's and the goblins aren't necessarily all evil either. There's you can go talk to the Goblin King, and there are different like quests that they send you on and different things that they want, but it's all very kind of political too, so really good story behind it as well.
Ultima was always really good about that.
Yeah,
if that's your thing.
The world does seem a little sparse given today's standards. When you go into like a dungeon crawler, you expect it to be really full of things, but honestly, I think that gives it actually more of a sense of realism as to this is kind of this prison colony that people have been thrown into. Mitch, you're just all over the place.
I can't hold on to a pen without throwing it.
That you're in this prison colony, and people are kind of like setting up these little enclaves, and they don't want to interact too much, because when they do, a lot of things can go bad, or like basically they just kind of keep to themselves. I'm really loving it and really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with Ascendant.
Yeah, so I mean, this is so fresh on your mind, and Ascendant is coming. Does this, like, what needs to change, or what improvements would you like to see in that game? Is it like you're playing this now and you mentioned it's sparse? Like, does that need to change, or do you want them to retain like all of that weirdness from the original?
Well, make the jumping puzzles easier. My God, jumping puzzles in 1993 were not good. I'll tell you that right now. Doing early 3D jumping puzzles is really a pain in the ass.
What do you mean early? We still haven't completely figured it out. I don't think, design-wise, I don't think anyone has made that. I don't think anyone has ever said, wow, this 3D platforming sure feels great.
Yeah,
it feels
exactly.
like, well, we can do it.
You know who did it? Valve.
Yep, Portal.
Yep.
Yeah, Portal, it was good enough to work, but I don't know if it still felt. I didn't feel that unconscious trust that I felt like in Super Mario Brothers, where it's like I just know, I know this amount of input will get me this amount of distance.
You gotta believe in yourself, Vince. You gotta believe. That's all you're missing.
I'm sorry.
No, absolutely, it's absolutely true. I think 3D platforming is generally pretty bad. But in this, in Ultima Underworld especially, you feel like a rubber ball because you hit a surface and you just like bounce and keep flying back. It's just kind of crazy, the physics in that game. But I think everything that we expect out of a modern gaming, obviously a huge graphical upgrade. The world does need to be more dense, more presented in a way where it's just not just a big black floor and just kind of barren walls. You're going to need to have some texture around. You're going to need to have some plants, some rocks, some water drips. Those effects, I mean, those are all kind of obvious, full voiceover and things like that. But really, I think the core of what the game is, the story, the political interactions, the secrets, kind of uncovering everything that's going on in the Stygian Abyss. I mean, I think they had all the elements there in the original. It's great that game design really hasn't changed that much over the years in terms of, to make a great game, you have elements of great story and great mechanics, and everything's got to tie in together, and you have to feel like you're challenged, but ability to get through a level too, that you can master it, and that there's a fulfillment at the end. So I think all these things still hold true today.
That like the Ultima games and that whole era of PC gaming was something that I just missed whether because of age and interest.
I
Like,
mean,
I
that
just-
was a good time because that's like XCOM,
Yeah.
Civilization,
Yep.
Sim City.
and I
I
never
mean,
got to any of that. Like
some of the
Syndicate.
big classics. Exactly.
I
Right.
thought you were
Like
gonna
that-
play
that-
on words. I just missed. I thought you were.
That's
Hey,
good. See,
that's
another
good.
one. Like that is these
that
are all,
late '80s, early '90s was such.
See,
a
and I
good
didn't really
period
get
for
into PC gaming until like the late '90s with StarCraft.
Me too,
And then
that's exactly
I
when
never
I
had a
started.
machine from then until like 2006. So there was so much about PC gaming that I've been catching up on over the past
Late
few
'90s
years.
was a golden age too for
yeah,
PC gaming.
Half-Life,
Yep.
obviously.
Yeah. Half-Life, Tribes, StarCraft, Grim Fandango.
Fallout.
So
Fallout.
I mean, and now we're getting all these re-releases of stuff like Grim Fandango. Fallout's available on GOG. Like these games are accessible, which is great because it lets me go back and experience that part of history. But it's really hard for me to go back just because the way those games are designed makes it really tough.
The UI design has come a long way.
Right.
Yeah.
Syndicate is like impossible.
I tried to play Baldur's Gate 2, which is maybe one of my favorite games of all time. I haven't replayed it in like 10-ish more years, and I tried to play the remaster, and I was like, wow, yeah, the interface by today's standards.
Well, and they announced the expansion. Like this is like 20-something years after Baldur's Gate came out, and they just announced a new expansion, which is insane.
It's amazing.
So, and it like bridges Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Siege of Dragonspear, and I'm looking at the video and I'm like, this is not a game I want to play. This is just so not for me.
So Mitch,
Well,
on the Syndicate side though, there's a kickstarted spiritual successor called Satellite Rain, which
Really?
is coming
I did
out.
not know that.
Coming out, I believe August. So
Okay.
very very soon. You might want to check out.
Okay, I'll look into it.
But that's
'Cause I
why
did
it's-
like Syndicate.
I think that's one of the things though that we're so I have fond memories of these PC games, but even going back and playing Ultima Underworld, I forgot how frustrating
Yep.
those jumping puzzles were. Right, so they're just things that you take for granted that at the time you were like, all right, whatever, this is amazing. You weren't used to that progression and that evolution yet of where we are today, and then you go back to them, and some things can be a little frustrating. I can certainly forgive a lot of those things. But you're right. I mean, there are a lot of things you're just like, why the hell was this even a thing back then?
Yeah, I mean, XCOM, UFO Defense is my favorite game of all time. But the only thing that keeps me from recommending it to people is the UI has not aged well.
Yeah.
You just spent all that time back then, like letting it become part of you.
Yeah,
so
and
you can manage it.
you read a thick manual before you even started
Yep.
playing. But like now trying to get somebody into that, it's like there's a big barrier to entry figuring out how to do everything.
Yeah. You were gonna say something, Vince?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's why. But the reason, if you don't want to deal with those old interfaces, that's why you play some of like their modern day equivalents, like Pillar of Eternity, like Divinity: Original Sin,
Yes.
and all these great games that are now coming out that are informed by all those games, but with the things that we have learned since then.
See, even those games, like having new versions of these old games, and we're seeing stuff like there's like the Planescape Kickstarter, like there's a new Planescape coming, which is cool.
Wasteland 2.
Wasteland
Wasteland
2,
2.
and I look at all of these games, I'm like, this is awesome. Like these are
Bard's Tale?
These are
Bard's Tale 4?
PC games. Yeah.
Yeah.
These are very, very hardcore, very PC games. Games that probably couldn't happen on console. They'd be a nightmare to play.
Well, Wasteland 2 is coming out on PS4, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That would be
They are-
interesting.
they're-
Good luck.
I want to see how they handle that.
So
Yeah,
was
just
Wasteland,
steal-
right? The original Wasteland. Are they doing that?
Maybe, I don't know.
Back for consoles? I thought they were.
Well, I feel like that's why
be
Fallout
wrong.
3 went a very different direction. Like they wanted to make Fallout accessible to a new audience in a way that is interesting and funny and exciting, like it was, but in a new fashion.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's the evolution of the game and
Yeah.
what people are used to, and putting it in that immersive world.
Well, and Fallout 3 was an entirely different developer
course.
and Bethesda never made a turn-based combat game, as far as I know, did they?
God, they may have in like the early 90s,
Right.
but who knows?
But
Was
yeah,
Wayne
that-
Gretzky hockey turn-based?
Did
I
they
love
make
that game. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
think it was
God.
Todd Howard's first game.
No
that he
way.
worked on. Yeah, I love Wayne Gretzky hockey.
Was
back
that the
in day.
N64 game?
No, well, I think it might have been on N64. I played it on Amiga.
Oh,
on
wow.
the computer back in the day. Yeah.
Okay. That's intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but even like you mentioned Pillars of Eternity, that's
Yep.
a game I look at. I'm like, this is a beautiful modernization of these old games. And I watch a video of someone playing it. And I'm like, this is still so not for me. Like, I respect that it's here, but like, there are some things in PC gaming that I respect but cannot.
Let me ask you this: Have
click
you ever
with.
played Oregon Trail, Mitch?
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember Oregon Trail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vividly.
With basically just a space bar to shoot
Yeah.
deer.
Yeah.
What if they did an Oregon Trail today that was done like in a style of the more modern Fallouts, where
They
it's
did. It
just
was called Red Dead Redemption.
where it's just where it's a frontier game though, where you have to go from say Baltimore, where you go from
Yeah.
the East Coast, Baltimore, Boston, wherever on the East Coast you want to start. You have to go through and say they have a good Cabela hunting game where you're actually there in first person and you have to shoot
Are
deer.
you
and
talking
you have
badly
to-
about Big Buck Hunter?
But I could see that actually being really fun. Like you're, going
I
through
would
the
love that
Frontier
as an open
experience.
world
Yeah.
rebooted, like
Yeah.
new gen.
Man, I can't wait to get cholera in first person.
Yeah.
That dysentery is real. It's real bad.
And the Oculus Rift version.
I was gonna
dysentery.
say, yeah. Don't look back.
Yeah.
Don't look back,
It's very
Dan.
vivid.
Yes.
Great. You can just watch your children die in real virtual reality.
But yeah, I mean, everything that is old is new again. I mean, they're doing
Yeah.
King's Quest.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, got
yeah.
it. That's out soon.
That's very soon. We're expecting review copies very soon.
Well, we've seen the obviously Telltale with the resurgence of old school point and click adventure games. They've shed a lot of the stuff that didn't work and focused on a lot of the stuff that people love with story.
But then you have Broken
characters.
Age.
Yeah, which is very hardcore in a game that I don't like. It is so point and clicky, and so I got to the first puzzle I got stuck on halfway through episode 1. I was like, I'm done. I just can't
finished.
hang. But again, another thing, I'm so happy it exists because it makes all of my friends so happy.
And it also depends on how they handle those things too. The whole point and clicky stuff. Like I am gonna get skewered for this. Actually, I got skewered for this for a review I wrote for IGN as a freelancer. But I didn't love Sam and Max. Because I felt like some of the puzzles were it was literally just, hey, I've got to find the hidden point on the screen
it was
that
very
I can.
pixel hunting.
Yeah, it was
Well,
very pixel hunting.
That's adventure games back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's adventure game logic where it's like only the game designers can imagine why you combine glue with cat hair to
and
make a
comb,
mustache.
Yeah.
Or,
I mean, that's what I did,
Whatever
Dan.
it was, yeah.
I mean,
That's
right
what-
now.
Tell us where I'm
so,
on right now.
yeah.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah, and there's more absurd examples of just
sure.
combining arbitrary things which force you to just combine everything. Although in modern internet age, those puzzles just don't really work anymore because you can just look up the example or the answer online in 2 seconds.
Right.
Oh yeah, I'm just instantly. I get stuck on something in Grim Fandango because I was replaying it on Vita. I was like, I don't understand this. And I just went to the wiki Miranda was making. I was like, all right, perfect. Now I know what to do. But it robs you of that discovery, which
Right.
made those games special, which is why I couldn't
I think
enjoy it as
I think it
much.
was the Monkey Island remastered that just had a very gentle hint system.
Yeah.
That would kind of nudge you in the right direction and then give you a little more until you finally get it, which is a much better way to go about that.
Yeah, I was able to finish Monkey Island 2 until the very, very end without a guide, and I felt really good about that.
But yeah, I saw the King's Quest remake at E3, and I think you might actually like it.
I'm very excited for it. It looks awesome.
It does have that use item on thing.
Sure, yeah.
So it has those same kind of puzzles, but
But the Very Odd Gentlemen are Odd Gentlemen, Very Odd Gentlemen?
it's just Odd Gentlemen.
Odd Gentlemen. Those guys, they make cool, smart games, and they just get modern game design in a way that I think is hopefully beneficial for King's Quest.
Yeah, and I don't think
i.e.
they'll.
me.
I don't. Based on what I saw, I don't think they're going to make anything too ridiculous.
No, it's good.
Yeah,
I
appreciate
really,
that.
really, really wish, and maybe you know something that I don't know, Dan. I really wish somebody was working on a good old school Mech Warrior redo.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Like Sim style, where you go in, you build your mech, you pick the parts that you want, you're able to salvage parts after battles.
And MechWarrior Online
love that game.
has that to some degree.
Little bit.
It doesn't have the single player aspect, which I think is probably what you want, Tal.
I'm still waiting for From Software to do a really
Yeah.
hardcore, good Armored Core game.
Well, they did it. It was called Chrome Hounds.
Yeah, very true.
And it was amazing, and no one played it,
Yep.
and I cried. That was the last game I can think of that really went to the extent, even close to the extent that
Yeah.
MechWarrior went to.
But Criminals was good.
Maybe they should have put it on PC where people play
Maybe.
mech games.
Maybe.
What's kind of funny to me, speaking of something like Chrome Hounds and to Mech Warrior, Valkyria Chronicles is to XCOM. I don't know if you ever had a chance to play that.
I never
Dan.
did. No.
Yeah, I know. I told you about that, but it was funny to me to see that kind of game on a console, and a lot of people on console go saying, "Oh wow, this is a brand new kind of game.
Yeah.
I've never played a game like this." And I was like, "Oh man, this is just XCOM." Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's XCOM, but you get to play it a little bit like Rainbow Six, kind of.
yeah. XCOM meets anime,
Yeah.
which is
Valkyria
great. I love
so
Valkyria
good.
Chronicles.
That's a great
It's great.
game.
I mean, the story's kind of throwaway,
Right.
But there are some good characters.
Yeah.
And the combat is awesome.
Our
And that,
style
that is on
phenomenal.
on
And that
PC
came
now.
out, yeah.
Yep,
came
for
out
like
on- came
$5
out-
to $10 on any given day.
Yeah. I need to try it out. Oh, it's in my massive pile of games I need to try out.
Yep.
Yeah. God.
Yeah, it's my Steam library. It just keeps growing.
Yep.
Every time I open Steam, because now we have the shared IGN account, I'm like, I have 2,000 games here, and I want to play almost all of them. It's so depressing. Oh well.
Yeah, there are like 12 games that come out on the average day on Steam.
Jeez.
Like it's pretty. I mean, most of them are absolute garbage. Don't get me wrong.
Of course.
But yeah, it's just a preposterous number of games.
It's like, what do they say about San Francisco? If you ate at a different restaurant every day, for every meal every day,
You would be so fat.
You would
Oh,
be
no,
really
wait.
fat,
Yeah.
B, be really broke, and C, you actually would not be able to still be able to try all the restaurants in the city
Because
because they keep opening up.
Yeah,
new
they keep
ones.
opening those. Yeah.
So it's like the same thing with Steam games. It's just unbelievable, like the volume and all the great. I mourn for all the great games we will
And
never play.
You know what?
Yeah.
The average Steam game takes a lot longer than an average meal too. So.
That's true.
But in most cases, the meal's probably finished, whereas these games are mostly not.